What's up, Thrashers, and welcome back once again to the Thrash Maniac 99 YouTube channel, and I am back with yet another album review, as for the most part July, this is going to be primarily underground releases that I'm going to be going over and reviewing, and we're kicking off the weekend of July 11th with one I was anticipating because I've become a pretty big fan of this band because of their last album. I am talking about the latest offering from Angerot with SEOFON. This came out on July 11th, this time on Redefining Darkness, and this is the band's fourth studio full-length overall. Like I said, became a pretty big fan of this band with their last album, The Profound Recreant, and I thought it was a killer album. It was a year-ender for 2023, I believe, was when it came out. And yeah, the best way to describe this band, for those who don't know, this is just awesome HM2 inspired death metal that happens to be from South Dakota, but they play with that HM2 tone, but they do add in little black metal moments to kind of maybe consider this black and death metal, but I don't think it's quite enough to call them a black and death metal band. They'll just add it in there here and there just to accent certain moments. For the most part, this is just very much old school meat and potatoes death metal with that HM2 filter to give it that like bloodbath, entombed, dismembered kind of sound, while musically fits in line with bloodbath, but also quite a lot of American death metal, I would say. And this album, only 7 tracks, but it's 33 plus minutes long, so this is a quick album with this average song length probably being about 4.5 minutes, because every single one of these songs is 4 minutes or longer, in the longest track being 5 minutes. So yeah, it's pretty quick for the most part. And also what's unique about this album is that each song has a different drummer. Kicking things off with Rapture of All That Is, excuse me, features drummer Kevin Paradis, formerly of Benighted, on drums. Musically, it starts off with like this eerie tapping melody and like backwards growling, and the drums pretty much build up the tension and the mood of the song before it unleashes into like big grooves, triplet chugs. You do get some like thrashy rhythms and some like evil tremolo riffs. And I gotta say, the lead work on this album I thought was awesome. Like, they're very musical, but also lots of harmonies within these leads. Like, the harmonies on the guitars actually kind of add a little bit more evil to this album, which I didn't think was possible, but lo and behold, here we are. And you do get a nasty breakdown and some blast beat sections on this opener. So it got the album going in a pretty big way. Musically, for the most part on this album, it doesn't go full-on speed. It mostly focuses on like chugs and groove and riffs. But you do get some occasional sped-up moments where either you get big tremolos or blast beat sections. The second track, When Witches Dance, which featured drums from the legendary Derek Roddy, whose resume is endless. I don't even need to mention all the bands that he's been in, you should know. But yeah, this one definitely kind of has a little bit of that blackened feeling, especially at the beginning with the tremolo riffs. Definitely kind of harkened back to bands like Behemoth and Necrophobic, Belphegor, kind of. But then they do turn into like almost like melodic death metal tremolos on top of blast beats. But again, it just grooves. Like, all these songs groove in a big way. But you also do get a little bit of dissonance. And this was one of the first songs on the album where you get a little bit of dissonance or like atonal melodies to add a little bit of an extra seasoning on top of this dinner of steak and mashed potatoes. We Are the Serpents and the Saints, featuring drums from DeRay, formerly of Vader, and Visanya. This one, interesting start with a bass line into a dissonant melody, and it's a big, evil, sinister build, almost like as if the devil's crawling up from out of hell to devour a criminal or something. It's almost like that kind of build, like a lurching devil about ready to devour criminals. But for the most part, it's all about the chug and the groove. You even get like blast beats on top of like open string notes. And then Lying Tongues Removed, featuring drums from Pierce Williams of Lord Gore and formerly of Skeletal Remains and Torture Rack. This one definitely gets a little bit more energetic in terms of the riffing. Like, it's a little bit faster, not as much about chugging and groove the whole way through. It even gets a little bit thrashy again, but it does return to blasts and chugs and groove in the whole 9 yards. Hell, it even gallops at the end, which I thought was really a nice change up. And then we get to her song of Feather and Ivory, featuring drums from Lord Marco of Brain Drill and 6 Feet Under. But this song has more machine gun riffing, like almost like thrash metal riffs that come up here on top of blast beats. But man, the triplet chugs on this song were nasty. And particularly the harmonies on this song, whether it be just standard harmonies or lead harmonies, man, they really know how to make it sound dark and murky. And even the melodies that show up just add extra murk to this song, and even another really killer breakdown. A Pact Made in Flesh and Wine, featuring drums from Thomas Haywood, formerly of Abigail Williams, and actually the owner of Redefining Darkness. He actually shows up on drums, and I will say, in terms of drum performance, this might have been my favorite one in terms of like the different accents that Thomas is adding on the cymbals, as well as like the different groove pockets and the fills that he's doing. Like, there's a little more tasteful drum work on this track, and it's all throughout. You even get, again, like atonal melodies. It builds up rather nicely, and it's, again, mostly about riffs and the groove, but blast beats do show up in the end. And Thomas, he's quite an underrated drummer, I must admit. And then the closer with No Eyes I See, featuring drums from Zach Simmons of Goatwhore. Big triplet chugs and swing right out of the gate, and then you get some like up-tempo rhythms, tremolo riffs, even some DBs kind of add a little bit of like a hardcore punky flavor. And yeah, the song itself, it's just a nice way to bring this album to a close. Like I said, for the most part, this album is going for riffs and grooves with occasional moments where they'll throw in some blast beats or a thrash beat, tremolo riffs to kind of break up the chugs and the groove. So yeah, this album definitely sounds a little more stripped down than say like the last album. Whereas I thought the last album, they were going all over the map. Here it feels like they kind of stripped things down a little bit to focus more about riff writing. Production-wise, it is really good production right here, the recording quality. Although I will say the HM2 tone does feel a little bit less than on the last album. It's still there, but it doesn't sound as prevalent on this album. As far as anything to complain about, I do wish that they could have added more like thrashy moments in some of these songs where it sounds so intense. I think a thrash beat or two on a couple of these songs would have added even more. But overall, besides that gripe, no complaints otherwise. This is yet another killer album. I give this a 4 out of 5. This is some really good stuff. I do plan to get this. If you're a fan of Bloodbath, Entomb, Dismember, I would also say maybe a little bit of Behemoth, but I'll also say bands like Obituary, More to Scold. Definitely check this out. But of course, those are just my opinions. What did you guys think? Let me know in the comments below, and don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. But until next time, thank you for watching, keep your horns high, and your dreams wet.